Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hey English podcast. I'm Sara, and I'm so excited to have you here today. If you're new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Today's topic is something really close to my heart: life in small towns. Whether you've grown up in a small town, lived in a big city, or are just curious about what it's like, this episode is for you. Now, before we dive in, let's break down a few key words. First, what exactly is a small town? A small town is a community with a smaller population, usually fewer people, compared to big cities. In English, we often use the word rural to describe areas like small towns, where there's less hustle and bustle. On the flip side, we have urban, which refers to larger cities where things are usually a lot busier. So, to summarize, a small town is rural, and the opposite would be an urban area or a big city. Throughout today's episode, I'll be explaining a few more words, phrases, and even some grammar points. So, whether you're here to learn about small town life or brush up on your English, you're in the right place. All right, let's get started. So, one of the first things that stands out about life in a small town is how close-knit the community is. Have you ever heard that phrase, close-knit? It means that people are really connected and supportive of each other, almost like one big family. It's like everyone knows everyone, which can be so different from city life. In a small town, you might walk down the street, and by the time you've reached the end of the block, you've already waved to 3 or 4 people. That's what we mean by tight-knit, or close-knit. It's not just about being neighbours, it's about really knowing and caring for each other. Here's a quick grammar note. When we're talking about things that are generally true, like people know each other in small towns, we use the present simple tense. So, instead of saying people are knowing each other, which wouldn't be correct, we just say know. This tense is perfect for describing things that happen regularly or facts about life. It's a big part of what makes living in a small town so unique. You feel connected to the people around you in a way that can sometimes be hard to find in a bigger city. Another aspect that really defines small-town life is how quiet and slow-paced it tends to be. Imagine strolling through a town where the pace is more relaxed and there's a certain charm to the slower rhythm of daily life. That's what we mean when we say slow-paced or laid back. For instance, in small towns, you might notice that people take their time, enjoying their coffee or chatting with neighbours. It's a big contrast to the hustle and bustle of city life, which is often described as bustling, a word we use to talk about busy and fast-moving places. Now, let's look at the phrase take it easy. It's an idiom that perfectly captures this relaxed vibe. When someone says, take it easy, they're encouraging you to relax and not stress too much. It's a common sentiment in small towns where people are more likely to enjoy a slower pace of life. In English, we use adjectives like slow-paced and laid back to describe these kinds of environments. And remember, when talking about these characteristics, we're usually describing things in the present simple tense, like life in small towns is slower, a straightforward way to share general truths. So, the next time you visit a small town, take a moment to appreciate the peaceful atmosphere. It's one of the many reasons people fall in love with small-town living. Another wonderful aspect of small-town life is how everyone helps each other out. It's like being part of one big team where people genuinely look out for one another. For example, if someone needs a hand with a project or is in a tough spot, neighbours are quick to offer help. We often use the phrase lend a hand to describe this kind of assistance. It's a friendly way of saying you're going to help someone. And there's also the saying it takes a village, which highlights how a whole community comes together to support each other. This idea is really strong in small towns where people are deeply invested in each other's well-being. Now, in English, we use modals like can and should when talking about these acts of kindness. For example, you might say, you can lend a hand if you're free, or we should help each other. These modals help express possibility and obligation in a friendly way. This sense of community spirit is a key part of what makes small towns feel so special. It's not just about living in a place, it's about being part of a supportive and caring network. So, if you ever find yourself in a small town, you'll likely experience this generous and helpful attitude firsthand. Of course, like anything in life, living in a small town comes with its own set of pros and cons. On the plus side, you get that tight-knit community we talked about, along with a slower, more peaceful pace of life. But there are also some challenges you might encounter. For example, one of the advantages, or pros, is that you often have a close connection with your neighbours and a strong sense of community. On the flip side, or con, small towns might have fewer amenities and entertainment options compared to larger cities. It's all about balancing what you value most in your lifestyle. We use the terms pros and cons to describe the good and bad aspects of something. Pros are the benefits or positive points, while cons are the drawbacks or negatives. This way of talking about things helps us weigh our options and make informed choices. There's a saying, the grass is always greener on the other side, which means that people often think things are better elsewhere, even if that's not always true. It's a reminder that every place has its ups and downs, and what's most important is finding the right fit for you. So, while small-town life offers many wonderful qualities, it's also good to keep in mind the things that might not be perfect. It's all part of the journey of finding where you feel most at home. Another beautiful aspect of small-town life is the sense of nostalgia and the strong presence of tradition. There's something really special about the way people in small towns cherish their history and celebrate customs that have been passed down through generations. Nostalgia is that warm feeling we get when we think about the past with fondness. It's often tied to memories and traditions that make small-town life so meaningful. Traditions, on the other hand, are the customs or practices that are handed down over time, like annual festivals, local fairs, or holiday parades. For instance, in many small towns, you might find traditional events that bring the community together, creating a sense of continuity and connection. These events are not just fun, they also help preserve the unique character and heritage of the town. In English, we often use the term old-fashioned to describe something that's from the past, and the phrase the good old days to refer to times we remember fondly. Both expressions capture that sense of nostalgia we're talking about. So, when you visit a small town, take a moment to soak in the traditions and the charm of the past. It's a wonderful way to connect with the local culture and appreciate the rich history that shapes these close-knit communities. And that wraps up our exploration of life in small towns. We've covered so much today, from the close-knit communities and slow-paced lifestyle to the sense of nostalgia and cherished traditions. Small-town life really offers a unique and often heartwarming experience. Before we finish, let's quickly review some of the key points we discussed. We talked about the idea of a close-knit community where people are really connected and supportive. We also explored terms like slow-paced and laid-back, which describe the more relaxed rhythm of small-town life. We touched on lend a hand and it takes a village to highlight the spirit of mutual support found in these communities. Don't forget the important vocabulary like pros and cons, which help us talk about the advantages and disadvantages of different lifestyles. And we also discussed the sense of nostalgia and tradition, which capture the special connection people have with their past and local customs. If you enjoyed today's episode and found it helpful, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Your support really helps us create more videos and continue exploring interesting topics. And if you have any thoughts or questions about life in small towns, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, take care and keep learning.